And you're looking live at the new GHSA reclassification map, which is scattered all over the state of Georgia. Bo Wilson alongside Walker McQuarrie. Walker, you have put extensive work into this map, and I love the geometrical shapes that you've come up with here. Yeah, we absolutely do know there's going to be reclass changes, and it should be interesting to see exactly how these numbers happen and what happens with everything across the board. Because when you take a look at, uh, you
Monday. Monday. Yeah. Yeah, Monday, we get the appeals process going, and the appeals will be heard at 10 a.m. down in Thomaston at the GHSA office. And then right after that, I would assume that as soon as all the appeals are held, the reclassification committee will say, okay, this is what we had as the regions before the appeals process. Let's move this team here, this team there, and boom, we should get the proposed regions, which again will go through another appeals process that'll take a week after that. Well, yeah, I mean, I see the what's going to be really interesting, especially in Hall County, is all of the Hall County teams, for the most part. There are some outliers, Johnson, East Forsyth, Jefferson, right around Hall County, that are going to be in different classifications. But all the Hall County schools, for the most part, in class what will be 4A. Uh, but the way that that region will end up probably looking, and we've talked extensively about this, Bo, over the last 48 hours, is you're probably going to get Oconee County and Monroe area thrown into that same region, and that'll be at least 10 teams in the region, if not 11. Johnson, of course, could appeal down. In fact, let's go ahead and look at what 4A could look like, Bo, since we've got the screen right here. This is the 4A map as currently constructed, and you see this region right here is the Hall County region plus Dawson White plus East Jackson, which gets thrown in there right here, and then you get your uh, your schools down in Athens, Oconee County, and Monroe area just west of Athens. So it becomes an interesting region because, like I said, that's 10 teams right there. If you throw Johnson in, if they were to appeal down and win their appeal, that's 11 teams in this region. And you're most certainly, Bo, looking to subdivide and probably looking at a north south subdivision.
Yeah, it'll definitely be interesting to see how that goes when you take a look at how you make that. The thing last night, watching some of the election coverage around the nation,
Mm-hmm.
the gerrymandering they were talking about and doing some redistricting. So, and basically what that means, it's a salamander, and you try to figure out, what's best for each region and what's best for each area. And then you also take a look at some travel time between the schools. Now, there are some regions you're just not going to get a decent travel time with. I mean, it's just not going to be the case because when you go, if you go up into 2A, you see where Rabin kind of falls and how far they might have to drive when you look at that. But they're used to that. So, where do you go? You have to go into a place because we still do the region formats. You have to go into a region to to qualify for the state tournament. So that's another interesting aspect of it. But when you see some of the travel times that might happen, you're like, okay, well, you may not have to deal with them if you're not a part of that school, but you still have to take that into account when you're making your decision as a
Hmm.
school system. What do I want to do? Can I move to another region that makes sense for us for travel and for Gates? Because, I mean, let's face it, you want to get money. You want to make money with your programs. And if you're having to travel 2 hours, most likely you're not going to make a lot of money with your Gates.
Well, and that's perfectly, situated by Raven. I mean, you've got the up here in Tiger, but you see the closest school maybe is Fannin right here to the west, or you have to go all the way down to Banks County Commerce, and you're not going to have just a three-team region, so you have to bulk them in with some social circle right here, kind of on their own little island. You Do you throw them in this west region? Do you throw them into an Atlanta region? You could right here with Providence Christian, you could throw them into Atlanta, but it kind of makes sense for them to be over in this region, which would likely be
Mm.
8-2A. So there are some of these schools, like you mentioned, that are kind of on the border as to where they would go, but Rabun County is kind of on their own island to where you're either going west and having to go over here and play the likes of Dade County or even all the way as far down as Pepperell High School,
Mm.
or you're playing Social Circle. And Rabun County's been in the same region as Social Circle previously, so it's not unprecedented for Georgia High School Association to throw them into that region.
No, it's not. And if you look at what you're talking about with the Ray-Ban, their drive to commerce is not terrible. I mean, obviously it's right down 365 and
Hmm.
whichever way you're gonna go from there. So you look at that, but then you look at let's go back to last year, for example, or last
Okay.
reclass, which was a couple of years ago, when you saw Union County decide to jump to 7-2A instead of playing an
Hmm.
8-2A. So they instead decided to go west instead of kind of go south, the eastern somewhat, or even more easternly. Uh, so they decided to make that move, and whatever that might have been, really and truly, it's like pick your poison, which way you want to go. So you do see some schools make those decisions based on that and what fit. And you go to 3A now. You've clicked to 3A. So let's take Lumpkin. Let's look at Lumpkin County. So Lumpkin County,
I was going to Lumpkin and
yeah,
Union both. I think that decision is going to have to be made for them.
yeah, because when you look at Lumpkin, Lumpkin's been playing in 6-3A with North Hall, Chestatee, Dawson, White County, Pickens in that GAC in that region. So when the numbers came out, Lumpkin was the smaller school of all of those. Johnson actually
Hmm.
moved to 5A. So the numbers come out. So now Lumpkin's kind of left on an island, if you might say, uh, because the other schools they're used to playing and have played years with in region, now they have to make a decision what they want to do. Do they want to move up to 4A, or do they want to stay in 3A with Union County? So when you look at that map, you're going to go east and play Hart, Stevens, Franklin County. In most likely, now we're not saying this is happening. This is we're trying to predict here, by the way. But when you
Yeah.
see that, they're going to go east. And granted, for Lumpkin, that's that. I mean, it's a, as they say, a fur piece. But you know, it's not a bad thing for them because when you take a look at all the factors that are involved in this, number one, obviously, is gate. Number two is travel. Number three is competition. So if you
Yeah.
feel like that is better for you to be in, and I'm not just picking out on you or Lumpkin and Union on this one, but this is any school. If you feel like that region is where you need to be able to compete for state championships, then why not?
Well, and we look at this map right here too, and I think it's pretty important to say if you're counting the number of shapes on the map of Georgia, there you're counting nine, and what we're hearing is that there's a proposal on the table. Of course, we know that in classes 2 through 4A, the private schools are going to be pulled out. and put into their own bracket when it's all said and done. There's a proposal on the table for an all private school region in Class 3A, which could mean that you could have 9 regions in Class 3A to still have the 8 automatic bids to the Class 3A bracket. And that would include, that's this region right here
Mm-hmm.
that I have blocked off. It includes Hebron. It includes, that's Barrow Arts and Sciences Academy, who's not a football playing school. That includes Wesleyan. That includes Lovett. That includes North Cobb Christian. If that region doesn't come to fruition, Bo, it's going to be really interesting to see what the GHSA does with those schools, because you look here in Northwest Georgia, you've already got a 10-team region there. You look here in Southern Metro Atlanta, you've got 8 schools already there. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 private school playing football playing schools. Where do those 7 schools fall into is going to be interesting. You would imagine Hebron's going to go northeast. Actually, Wesleyan's going to go northeast. North Christian probably going to go northwest. But there's these 4 or 5 schools right here in Atlanta. Where does the GHSA put them? Because you've already got 8 teams here. You will have 8 teams here, and you'll have 11 teams here. Of course, the southern part of the state restructure a little bit. Columbus only has 4 teams in their region, but you're not going to see any of those private schools go down to the Columbus area to play region football. So where do the private schools fit in when it's all said and done, if there's not an all private school region in the northern part of Atlanta?
Yeah, that's one of the interesting parts when you talk about an all private school region, because you look at how it's laid out. I think this is a an opportunity to go into. There's no longer top 4 out of each region that's going to go to the state tournament,
Yeah.
state playoffs. So now your only guarantee is if you win your region, you get an automatic bid. Now, no longer are you seated in the top 8. You're now seated in the top 16. So you're
Mm-hmm.
guaranteed at least one home game, in the playoffs. So when you look at that, because through classes 2A through 4A, they're taking the private schools out and putting them in their own playoffs. So the only thing that private schools are going to do for you is help your PSR, because we
Mm-hmm.
know a lot of private schools have very good programs, and so it's going to help your PSR rating. So, is that a catch-22 for schools like who might complain about a private school being in their region? Well, now it doesn't matter. They're not going to take a spot away from you. They're just going to help your PSR. So
The only way they would take a spot away is if they do get put in a region and they win the region.
that's true. That's true.
Uh, so there is a little bit of, but instead of taking one of 4 spots, they're only taking one of one spot,
Right.
which is, you're outnumbered. The chances of them getting the number 1 seed, if you look at it, mathematically, statistically on paper, you're outnumbering them public to private in the region, so you've got a better chance. Like you said, though, Bo, private school, these some of these private schools, especially a Hebron Christian, a very strong program. Wesleyan, traditionally a strong program. GAC up in 4A, a strong program as well. So, do they have a chance of winning the region and stealing that spot? Absolutely. But it's a lot. Uh, there's a better chance of them not stealing that spot because it's only one automatic bid out of each region.
Right. And I would contend with that and say, regardless if they do win your region, I mean, let's just say GAC wins a public school region that they're put in. Uh, So the number 2 team has one loss, and that's to GAC. You're still most likely, if you're if your
Absolutely.
PSI is high enough, you're going to be the top 16. So, again, like before, if GAC wins a region, they take a number 1 seed away from you, which would mean you're not ranked in the top 8. So, I don't know if it's that heavy of a deal breaker for
I
me,
agree.
but regardless of that, that's how it's going to work out. So, uh, the private school region in Class 3A is interesting, and it does make sense. It does make sense 100% on that. All right, Walker, let's go to 7A, because 7A is very interesting when you take a look at what could possibly happen here. I find it interesting, which possibly would be Region 8, 7A if we go based on historical data from the GHSA. So we go there kind of to the east, northeast there, and we see two teams that I don't think are going to get away from each other as far as playing in a region, and that is North Gwinnett and Buford.
Yeah, you've got this northeastern part. Of course, we were zoomed out just a minute ago. Wanted to show, where the 7A schools end up residing. Of course, Lakeside Evans kind of on their own island over here in Augusta, and then you're going to have a region with Colquitt County and Richmond Hill. That's going to be a fun road trip in basketball season for sure. But let's zoom in here to Metro Atlanta because that's where the 7A schools kind of fall. You've got this region here. You mentioned Buford. Of course, Mill Creek in the same region. But you mentioned this to me on Monday. North Gwinnett has always found a way to kind of get out of this region somehow, some way. I don't see how that's a possibility this time around, and here's why. Your Forsyth County region with North Forsyth, Denmark, all the way down to Alpharetta, that kind of geographically is a perfect fit. There's a nice little line here. You draw a line down Lake Lanier, down all the way through to Brookhaven, and there's a nice dividing line where North Gwinnett ends up in the same region as Buford. And assuming that the Bulldogs don't find a way to get out of that region, you're going to see Buford and North Gwinnett because let's call a spade, Bo. We think that it hasn't been maybe blatantly trying to get out, but how is Central Gwinnett in the same region as Buford if North Gwinnett's not in that region?
Right. No,
Geographically it doesn't make sense. So I just don't see how North Gwinnett and the Bulldogs can get away from playing Buford in high school football for the next 2 years.
Yeah, and the only way that if you're going to go geographically, the only thing that you might see of this wouldn't make the Forsyth County region very happy, but you could send Buford out 20 West and head over to that region. But that, to me, makes very little sense to do. Just, of course, now we are talking about GHSA regions, so there are sometimes the sense is just not there, that we see. But you could possibly take North Gwinnett and Buford and put them into what is right now 8-6-6A, I think, or 6-6A, not 8-6A.
Yep.
I'll get it right in a minute. But you could technically do that if that is going to be an issue, or if North Gwinnett petitions to move over, down, wherever they need to go. But when you look at
but again, you're not taking one without the other in terms of geographic. So
it just
doesn't make sense.
It's a natural fit. Now, you might have folks like, Seckinger, who is moving up, by the way, to 7A. Seckinger, you have Mill Creek, Collins Hill, Peachtree Ridge, and Duluth in this region right now, the way we have it drawn up.
Yeah, and Decula as well.
Yeah, and Decula. So you might have some of those schools that are like, we got to contend with Buford and North Gwinnett. Well, hey, it's the way it happens. And again, Class 7, all classifications will be using the postseason ranking as to get into the playoffs, and only the region champions will get a guaranteed seed through 1 through 16. So, yeah, this is an interesting look here in 7A, and one that we're going to keep an eye out for because I'm not sure how long it's been since North Gwinnett and Buford have played during the regular season, but that would be definitely one of those marquee games, and it would for this region, Walker, when you throw Mill Creek, Buford, North Gwinnett, even if Peachtree Ridge is having a good season, that automatically makes that region better, which it's not been great over the last few years. Buford's pretty much dominated that region, so it'll be interesting to see if that's the way it kind of falls out. But there again, I could see them moving on down 85 and figuring something different out on, the east side of 985 and 85. So that's an interesting looking region as we see it. Now, have we hit on 6A yet? Actually, let's move to 5A.
We're about to. Oh, you
You
want to move to 5A? Okay, let's do that.
let's roll to 5A because this one's also interesting, and it's when you look at. Actually, let's hit 6A. Sorry, I want to go 6A. Yeah,
Okay.
Gainesville. Yep. Sorry, getting things mixed up. I still call 6-3A 7-3A. So there you go. It's been 2 years. But you look at this region. So now here you have what we think will be the new 8-6A that will house Hab, Gainesville, Clark Central's shit probably will be there. Jackson County, Mountain View. I mean, the way we have it drawn here. Now, this could change. Could change because we have some southern metro schools that are in this region. Do you think Alpharetta's going to be in this region? Johns Creek in
It,
this region?
it becomes interesting because you have so many schools right in this area, Bo, that are 6A. And so where do the lines end up getting drawn? Um, it's not unprecedented for Habersham Central here to be in the same uh, region as Shiloh. So that's why you throw the line there. Like you mentioned, Johns Creek in the same region as Gainesville currently. Alpharetta's been in the same region as Gainesville and
Mm-hmm.
Habersham previously. So not unprecedented. But again, because there are so many schools in the metro Atlanta, the Northeast throw Rome in there as well because they're the furthest northwest team in this classification. It's kind of hard to predict where the lines are going to get drawn, especially as we zoom out, just to show you where we're at because of this. You've got schools so spread out down here in the southern part of the state, Bo,
Mm-hmm.
to where you're only going to see 4 or 5 team regions down there. You have Augusta only with 3 schools blocked in there. Anticipate, if we pull back up 7A Lakeside Evans, maybe petitioning down, you pull up 5A, there's 2 schools there that probably petition up to get a full region in the Augusta area. But again, there's just so many schools here. It's very difficult to determine where the lines are going to get drawn, but you're probably going to see Habersham and Shiloh in the same region again. And oh, by the way, on the way down to Shiloh, you're going to pass City Park and you're going to pass Houston, which Jackson County just claiming 8-5A this year. Now we get to see them go up against Big Red potentially and a rematch with Habersham Central and throw Clark Central in there, who you can't imagine is going to be as bad as they were this year. That could end up being a really fun region, especially throwing in a Mountain View and a Lanier as well to kind of strengthen that middle tier of the region.
Well, if let's say this region is happens like this is the way that's 11 teams in this region,
Mm-hmm.
obviously going to have to be subdivided because you can't get away with 11 team region in football. You can do it in basketball, but regardless, that's a huge region. So then comes, how do you subdivide this region? Do you take 85 and you say, okay, those of you north, you're in a subregion. Those in you south of 85 are in a subregion. So that'll be an interesting thing in itself when they
My
do.
guess, my
You could
guess
do it
here,
that
Bo,
way.
and I've got a line there. I think that's the way to do it. Um, of course, you could get Alpharetta. Let's end the line right there. You could get Alpharetta moving over into this region
Mm-hmm.
potentially, to where then you have 5 here, 5 there, and you have even subdivisions. Um, but yeah, you could divide along 85. See if I can figure out how to play with this here. There we go. Maybe edit. Nope. Yeah, there we go. You could, in theory, go this way. But then, what does Jackson County fall on the southern part or the northern part of
Yeah.
that line? Where does Alpharetta and Johns Creek fall? Do they stay over there or do they stay in this region? I think the more logical way is to draw it the way I previously had it, from the north to the south, and you get the Gainesville, Winder, or Appalachie, Clark Central in the Gainesville side of the subdivision.
Yeah, the only one that in seven in this 6A, classification here. You look at the Atlanta, uh, I'm going to say northwest-ish region. It's downtown Atlanta going toward Marietta. That is what, 5, 10. That's
Yeah,
13 teams in that region. I could see potentially Tri-Cities and Woodward maybe bumping down to that next region, which is kind of
potentially.
South Atlanta, because you have that many teams. And let's just say, I mean, there's how do you get away from, and I think we've lost Walker. Walker's back.
Oh, I'm back.
Yeah, you back. Reshare your
Yeah,
screen there, as we got a big question mark on the screen. Um,
don't really know what happened there.
yeah, me either. But let's
There we
let's
go.
get there. We go.
Maybe. There we go.
So basically, what I was saying is you're going to move teams. You have a 13 team region as we have it now. Granted, folks, disclaimer, full transparency. This is our work, not the GHSA. We're trying to predict here and have a little talk about reclassification numbers and how the regions are going to happen. And again, if you're just joining us, all of these numbers are out. Teams now will be able to appeal these numbers to move up, and some may move down. And then when all of that comes to a close, they will. And we said Monday, right? Monday's the meeting.
Monday at 10 a.m.
So
Yep.
Monday at 10 a.m., they will hear all of these appeals and most likely have regions out by that evening at some point, if not by evening on Monday, definitely on Tuesdays, so you can start the appeal process once again, appealing which regions you've been put in, you can move in or out, so if you're approved. So this is just our stuff. And you have a 13-team region here in the downtown Atlanta region, I'm going to call it. You're going to have to move some teams around regardless of what happens here
Yeah.
in this one. And don't know how the movement will happen because you have big regions in the metro area, up to Northeast Georgia, over to Rome, down to Noonan. You see some of those teams, Peachtree City, over to Covington. So it's a broad spectrum here of teams, a broad range of teams, and you have to figure out some way to make it, I'm not going to say an even split, but as even as you can in the
Yeah.
division of these schools into regions. So that's going to be a task for the GHSA. But I'm seeing some schools moving here, and where I will say that I feel like they're going to move, I feel like Johns Creek might petition to move. I feel like Alpharetta might if they are thrown into the Northeast Georgia region in 6A. I think so. And if you remember 2 years ago, actually 4 years ago, we're going to go back, not this reclass, but the last one, Shiloh was in Gainesville's region. So they were the southernmost team in the region. So it's not a newcomer if they are in Gainesville and Habs region. So, but very interesting to how this one's going to shake out.
Where you could see a change to kind of help with the division of these schools up here in Atlanta, Bo, north side of Columbus, you pull up the 5A map just for a quick reference. You could, in theory, if they were to appeal down and get into this classification, which we'll get, or into this region in 5A, which we'll get to in a moment, then you could, in theory, get these Macon schools and lump them in with a Thomas County Central High. It's a long road trip, but that makes a bigger region there, which allows you to add one more region up here in the Atlanta area and kind of break up all of these 6A schools in the Atlanta area. But again, it's all about if they can win the appeal to be able to move classification. Same thing with the Augusta area in 5A, and we'll go ahead and shift to 5A. You notice we don't have the two Augusta schools in a region right now, because we kind of anticipate them to be appealing up to 6A to get into a more geographical sense-making region. Otherwise, they're either going to Macon or they're going down to the Savannah and Waycross area, which I don't think either Richmond Academy nor Harlem wants to make the road trip all the way down to Waycross or all the way over to Perry to play a football game on a Friday night.
Yeah, and you would have to think that the GHSA would actually sincerely hear those appeals of those schools to be like, look, we're here on an island. We're all alone. You're going to spend money on travel. Your gates are going to be terrible. So if there's any possibility of that happening, I'm sure GHSA will take a
I mean,
strong look at
you
that.
look at what it could end up at 6A. Again, throwing the 7A school in Lakeside Evans there. There's six schools right there, Bo and
Hmm.
Augusta. So it just makes sense for Lakeside to be able to play down into 6A, and then Richmond Academy and Harlem to be able to play up into 6A. There's a six-team region right there in Augusta that just
Yeah,
makes too much sense for the GHSA not to go through with it.
makes a whole lot of sense when you look at that right there, that picture on the screen, and how that would make a very good region for those teams. So, have we mentioned five? We're on 5A right now, so
Correct.
I want to mention two of our area schools that are in 5A, three actually. You look at East Forsyth and Johnson and Flowery Branch. Now, if you go to the numbers, and this is what bothers me, and I'm going to go on record here by saying I do not like the 3.0 multiplier on these schools. I know why it's there. I get what they're trying to do with the multiplier. They're trying to you know they'll tell you competitive balance, but really and truly, it's to get the private schools to move up and the city schools to move up in schools that have a large amount of transfers. Now, Flowery Branch is one of those schools that is basically getting screwed by this multiplier. They have 139 out of district students. Now, Flowery Branch has a program that a lot of kids want to go to for educational purposes that they may not even put a uniform on. Now, I know you can't be selective, you have to do across the board. And you can't be selective at that. But if you go in and you make a good argument and a good case of those 139 students, Flowery Branch could possibly, because their raw numbers are 1243. So you add the 139 to them, it's 1,521. Now that puts them, a good ways up from the bottom of Class 5A. But the top school in 4A is Clarkston right now with 1384. And that is a raw number, no multiplier for Clarkston. If you want to go to the top school with a multiplier, Cherokee Bluff, but their raw number is 1204. Their 85 puts them up to 1374. By the way, Bluff's the second largest school in 4A. So if Flowery Branch makes a very good plea to the GHSA and states its case, we might see them drop down to 4A, which again would make that 4A, which we're calling 8-4A right now, an interesting region, and how would the GHSA deal with that? So, from my understanding, I believe Flowery Branch is going to try to make that appeal, but if they don't win it, they're going to be in 5A, and well, you see the 5A region that's on the screen right now, Walker.
Yeah, we've got 4 and 5 up right now, just to point out where Flowery Branch would fall into that region that you mentioned. That you could, if Flowery Branch were to appeal and win. I mean, East Forsyth, Johnson. We kind of maybe think Johnson might appeal down as well. One of the smaller schools in 5A. So it becomes really interesting in that 4A region. Sure, but taking at what the 5A region could look like, again, assuming that no appeals are won or anything like that, are 4 area teams that we have in East Forsyth, Johnson, uh, Flowery Branch, and Jefferson. Get in with Madison County, get in with
Mm-hmm.
Cedar Shoals, get in with North Oconee, and then kind of over here, Winder Barrow as well. But then you get Walnut Grove and East Side. Not unprecedented for them
No.
to be put in a region, especially, I mean, even back when I played, Bo, in the late noughts to early tens, Lumpkin County was in the same region
Mm-hmm.
as a Walnut Grove and as an East
Yeah.
Side. So it, you could see that. In theory, you could also see potentially, you could divide it right here along 85. You could see East Forsyth, Flowery Branch, and Johnson go over into the Cambridge region as well. I mean, that wouldn't be a shocking thing. It would be surprising, but not shocking, because it makes regions about even in size. Right now, you're looking at a 10-team region over here and only 6 teams in the Cambridge region. That would make it 9 and 7, which is a little bit more even than 10 and 6. So I wouldn't be necessarily shocked if if East Forsyth and Flowery Branch and Johnson got lumped over here a little bit west of Buford, but just given already precedented things that have happened, I think that if the classifications and the schools stay the same, I think you're looking at 10 teams here and a subdivided region as well, which I'm guessing the line go from Snellville to the northeast and go through Royston and kind of divide where Madison County is going to the southeast and Jefferson and Winder-Barrow go up toward Hall County.
Yeah, East Forsyth is a unique situation geographically because it's just as easy for them to jump on Dawsonville Highway as it is to get over to 400 or Highway 9 to get down to Cambridge and to get down to Alpharetta. So that would have to be a very heavy conversation for East Forsyth when the regions come out. If they do get put in kind of the Athens area, Gainesville area region here, do they want to head out Dawsonville Highway to play, or do they want to head down 400 to play? So I guess the factor there would be one, either what's the gates going to look like, what's the travel going to look like, and is it better for them to go to Athens or is it better for them to go down to Alpharetta? So that'll be an interesting decision on East Forsyth's part. Now, for Flowery Branch, I think they would stick with the region you've got here, Walker. I think they would because for them, it's easier for them to go that way, in my opinion. So, and again, you got to look at all this stuff, and that's what folks will look at when the regions come out in this whole deal. Have we hit everybody? Did we do 2A? Yeah.
We haven't hit 1A. Of course, we didn't really draw out regions in 1A. Because the only team in our area is Towns County, and you see how big of an island they are out on in the next closest school.
God bless them.
Probably Lincoln, Washington, Best Academy, or who is this? Tryon High School.
Mm-hmm.
So what is Towns County going to do? Of course, they finished their season 7-3 this year, playing a non-region schedule, playing teams from South Carolina, from Tennessee, from North Carolina. So what do they decide to do up at Hiawassee for football? I believe basketball they're playing in this region down here. Is that right, Bo? They're playing in the Lincoln County, Washington Wilkes
Green
region.
County, Warren County. Yep. They play in that region currently. So, they're used to traveling on that. Football decided that, hey, let's play a non-region schedule and let's try to get some wins under our belt, and they did so. As you said, they finished 7-3. So, the decision that they're going to make there, again, you cannot play a non-region schedule and be eligible for the playoffs. So the decision will have to be made there by coaches and administrators at Towns County, what they decide to do as a total program, which my assumption is they perhaps will probably kind of do the same thing as they did last reclass period. So, when you see schools in single A like this, and again, they have eliminated the single A split. So basically, most of the schools, I'm going to say, Walker, that were in Class A Division II are now in Class A with the adjustments there. So you can tell by this map how you have Towns County on an island, and then as well as Tryon High School, kind of the Somerville area outside north of Adairsville.
Just a little outside Somerville,
So those two schools are definitely on an island in North Georgia, and the scattered part gets a little less scattered when you get south down into Macon and south of Atlanta and then south of Macon. So that makes it a little bit easier for some of those schools there. But again, Class A very scattered out, and if you were to take and start with 7A, you see 7A is Metro. You put 6A on the map. It's a lot of Metro. You put 5A, you see where the schools are. You go to 4A, and boom, you start filling in south a bit. And then you go down to 3A, and you start filling in a little bit more. But when you hit 2 and 1A, then the state looks like a really pretty Christmas tree with a lot of different lights on it. So gotta see how that all works. But you see where the majority of the schools are, and that's Metro and around Metro. So it's just interesting how this whole map works out. And, I guess back in the day they used to have a lot of the push pins and colored
Hmm.
string on a a bulletin board, trying to figure this out. But
Well, that's
yeah,
kind of what we did here. We
yeah.
just brought it into the 21st century.
Well, this is it, folks. This is what we have. Walker's gonna have a story coming up here on Access in a few minutes. You can take a look at it as we kind of wait and see what's going to happen with everything. But Walker, you and I kind of love this time. Caleb, he loves it as well. And coming up tomorrow night on the Pick'em Show, you guys are going to talk brackets. And you might hit this, I would imagine, with Jeff and Caleb on the show. I will not be on the show tomorrow because Sophie has her first basketball game. So I'm going to go
Good
watch
luck,
that.
Sophie.
Yeah, no football this week. So we have plenty of time to
Well,
talk about
no,
a bunch
we,
of
we do
well,
have
we
we
do,
do
we
have a
do, we
football
do,
game
we
this
do.
week.
I forgot.
Lanier
Lanier
Christian in
Christian.
action. Don't want to write off the Lightning. They're trying to defend a state title. Playing in the semifinals Friday night. But yeah, on the Pick'em show tomorrow, I'm sure Caleb and Jeff want to get their 2 cents in about this reclass and what it could mean. Of course, we'll definitely be talking about it a lot next week when we anticipate the proposed regions coming out, and we'll go through this whole process again with appeals and try and guess who's going to try and move regions and what we could be looking at come fall of 26 for next football season and a new era of
Mm-hmm.
GHSA postseason play with full PSR rankings and no more top four automatic bids.
Yeah, and again, I'll throw it out there. I love the fact that the GHSA voted in the postseason ranking system for every classification and made the tweak to it of saying, look, we're going to put the region champs get an automatic bid, but you're not going to be 1 through 8. You're going to be put in where your PSR is, and if you're 16th. You will be 16th. If you're 18th, they'll move you into the top 16 because you get that reward of winning your region, of getting a first round, home game. So I do like the fact – what I do also like is the fact that teams, now every game is important to them. Every
Mm-hmm.
single game is important. And that's ultimately what we want, is we want a top 32 in the playoffs to be the best 32 that you can get in. Now, will there be some issues with formulas? Absolutely. Will there be some issues with this formula didn't do right? It needs to be tweaked again. But I wish the GHSA would, once this is implemented next year, I wish they would make, mid-classification adjustments to the PSR if it needs tweaking. That's the only thing.
Mm-hmm.
If it needs tweaking, you find out an issue, tweak it. Like, I wish they would have done that for this cycle. I wish they would have said, look, we're tweaking the PSR this year. The top 32 make it, and that's what we're going to do. But they didn't, and we'll have to wait and see. But I look forward to it. I look forward to Monday, Walker, and look forward to seeing what happens with the regions.
Yeah, this map's going to get edited quite a bit over. Well, it's not going to get edited anymore until Monday, but as soon as we start getting word on appeals and what potential regions could look like, we're going to kind of wipe this map clean and, for lack of better terms, start over and see what the regions are and start trying to speculate which schools are going to be looking to move east, west, north, and south to get to a little bit of a different region. It's such a fun time for us as media members to speculate and prognosticate, but it's deciding a lot for the next 2 years, and so that's why we enjoy it so much, is because it is a very important thing that happens in our state every 2 years. So it does cause ripple effects for the next 2 years and gives us some fun matchups. We talked about potential of Buford and North Gwinnett in the regular season. uh, yes, give it to me. Give it to me 10 times a year, because that's what we want to see. And then, like you mentioned, the changing the bracket to you're getting the top 32 teams into the
Mm-hmm.
playoffs. You're not going to have a chance to see Buford and Grayson, for instance, playing in a quarterfinal game, because that's how the regions lined up. They're two of the top five teams in Class 7A is what they would end up being. I want to see them playing later in the postseason as opposed to earlier in the postseason.
Absolutely. Hopefully that's what we get, and we'll see how it ends. As we're gonna wrap it up here. Don't forget, coming up tomorrow night, 6 to 8, the Pick'em Show. It's the off-week Pick'em Show, so Walker, Caleb, and Jeff will go through the brackets, a little bracketology for all of you. And I don't know if you'll make your predictions. You probably will, but that'll happen tomorrow. Also, they'll
Pick 'em
probably
show for a reason.
That's right. They'll have also probably some more of the reclass talk. So. Thanks for joining us today, and stay tuned with us. Keep track at accesswdun.com, as we'll have stories about what happens on Monday at the GHSA, and then we'll probably get back on here and chat it up again. For Walker, I'm Bo, and until tomorrow night when you get to hear him on the Pick'em Show, have a great rest of your day.